Hi everyone. I read a lot of books in October and I'm super proud of what I've read, and I want to share with you guys, obviously, the books that I got done. I had a pretty large stack in my October TBR. I made a video for that, and I said that I would not get to every book in the stack, and that turned out to be true. However, I got to way more books than I predicted that I was going to get to. I thought maybe, I had like a huge stack of books, maybe like 11 or 12 or something. And I thought maybe I'd read 5, and that's if I, really push myself. But I did good this month, and I kept up my momentum, and it was fun. And I never forced myself to read. I just had a lot of good books that kept my interest. So I already shared some of the books I read and gave my thoughts on those. I can link that video below. I think it's my mid-month October check-in or whatever. And I think I talked about these. My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. 4 stars is what I gave that. The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Another 4-star read. And then Blanky, which is like really just a short story. But I'm counting it as a book because they made it into a book. By Keelan Patrick Burke. And I think I gave this 4 stars as well, if I'm remembering. Like, all these were really good books. I enjoyed them greatly, and I would recommend them based on the fact that I like them. Blanky might not be to certain people's tastes because it's about a dead infant, or that's like the whole reason behind the stuff happening in this story. So might not be for everyone, but this was a good little horror story or horror novel that I enjoyed. And these, of course, were great as well. So now I'm going to move on to the rest of the stuff I read that I haven't talked to you guys about yet. And something that I don't think I mentioned in my dark, thrillery October TBR was that I was reading Coraline as well by Neil Gaiman. I did this as a read aloud for my kids because I wanted them, I wanted to read spooky, dark stories that were more on their level for the month of October, because I want them to get into the spirit, and they love being scared and creeped out and thrilled. So they were all about it. So I got Coraline because I have heard a lot of good things about Coraline, and I've heard it's really creepy and disturbing, and we've actually already watched the animation movie of I don't know why I can't speak. We already watched that, and that was okay. But I feel like I'm getting ready to give, I don't know, it always makes me a little nervous when I'm getting ready to not hype a book up that I feel like a lot of people liked. But I read Coraline to the kids, and overwhelmingly, this book was simply okay. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. Just a solid 3-star. There's no 0.25 or whatever to this one. Just a solid 3. The kids did request it sometimes. They requested another chapter. So it's hard for me to rate this because they seem to enjoy it. However, they didn't beg for it like they have for other books in the past that I've read to them. They weren't I could just tell that the excitement wasn't there for me to pick up Coraline. They liked it, but they didn't beg for it. And me personally, I started to get pretty bored with it after the first few chapters, and it was really more for them than for me anyway. But I was hoping it would be a little more creepy. I don't think that my kids were very creeped out. Again, they enjoyed the story, but it wasn't as scary as I hoped it would be for the month of October. I probably wouldn't read this aloud again, but certainly, if my kids wanted to read it, I would let them read it, obviously. But if you don't know about Coraline, it's about a girl who finds herself going into sort of an alternate reality, or a different version. Or maybe it's called a parallel universe of what her real life with her parents. They're busy, and they're not always they're good parents, but they're busy. They've got their own lives. And then she falls into this alternate or parallel universe with perfect parents who are also really creepy and a little too perfect, and they don't have regular eyes. Everything has black buttons for eyes, and that's pretty much the creepiest element for me, but it was okay. I thought it was okay. The kids liked it, but they didn't love it. Now, moving on to some books that I read for myself. Let's see, I'll just start picking them up. I read and finished Salem Falls by Jodi Picoult, and I think, what did I give this? I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads, but maybe it's more of like a 3.75 if I had to choose. Ever since I made that star rating video where I explained how I rate my books, now I feel like I need to go like further in depth with points if it didn't fall, right on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 little star line right there. This was a 3.75 for me. But I think I rounded up to 4 or something on Goodreads because it's not like it's not a low 3. I don't know why this is still marked. This was a pretty good story. I always like a little bit of Jodi Picoult. Some of her books are okay. Some of them are great. So I'm always willing to pick them up. But this is a story that draws a lot of inspiration and parallels from the Salem witch trials, hence the name, I suppose, which I personally enjoy reading and learning about. It's something I find very interesting. It reminded me a lot of The Crucible, if you're familiar with that play. I actually was in The Crucible in high school, so I personally love that play and that whole storyline. So this is about a man who starts his life over in Salem Falls. He's wanting to leave his past life behind, and he's just trying to lead like a quiet new life. And people find out in this small town about his sketchy past, and trouble kind of spirals from there, with some teen girls involved who happen to have a crush on him, and that creates trouble for him. And I love that it also incorporates modern day witchcraft into this book, because the girls are witches. In this book, they are secretly going to practice Wiccan rituals in the woods, and they do little spells and stuff like that. And stuff obviously they don't want their parents to know about. But how can I say this without giving too much away? Teen girls, new man in town, witch hunt. It basically turns into there's a modern day witch hunt happening in this novel, which again, I just love that they incorporate real modern day witchcraft, like girls actually trying to be witches, like how it was in the past. And then people in the town, certain people in the town suffering for that. And there's false accusations that are made, and basically modern day hanging, which it's prison time now, So I like that whole element of it. When I first started reading, let me hold it up again. It feels weird not to hold it up. When I first started reading this, I cringed a little bit because some of the lines were a little, I don't know, some of the dialogue is a little cheesy in here for me, but the story was solid enough that I could overlook it, and it wasn't throughout the whole book. All right, so the next book that I read, actually I read this one first, was The Ruins by Scott Smith. And this is a horror novel, which was very unique. I think I gave this 4 stars as well. The main thing about this book is I don't think you're meant to care about the characters very much, or at least I didn't. They were very like flat characters, very one-dimensional. Like I didn't care about them at all. But the whole, how do I say this? The whole theme of what is happening in the book is interesting enough where it doesn't matter. It didn't matter that I didn't care about the characters. I was too invested with the storyline and what was going to happen next and next and next. This is about, I think was it 4 or 5 people, young people that are on a vacation, and they end up going on a little adventure to some ruins. in the middle of the forest. And then they find themselves there, and then they can't leave. So they're at these ruins, and really bad stuff starts to happen. This is a movie, by the way, in case y'all didn't know that. So really bad stuff starts to happen, and what I think the main character in this book is not supposed to be the people. It's supposed to be the thing happening at the ruins. There's a character in here that is not human, and it's the ruins. We'll just call it the ruins, is the main character of this book, which I really liked. That's what made it really unique. Yeah, this is classed as a horror novel, I'm pretty sure. And it's fast-paced, and there's stuff happening, but it doesn't fill you so much with gore that you become immune to it. That's what I like about it, because I've noticed with certain horror novels, I'm actually a little bored when it's just constant carnage and gore and disgusting stuff happening. Then I just get immune to it, and I don't really care anymore. But this had just the right amount for me. And yeah, I just really loved it. This was a nice fast-paced read. Really interesting. It gave me this uneasy, almost queasy, sickish feeling while reading it. Just, it unsettled me. Let's just put it that way. I liked it. I think a lot of people would like it. Moving right along, I also read Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCready. I found this when we were out shopping at a local thrift store for stuff for our Halloween costumes, and I was looking through the books, of course, and I saw this, and the cover caught my attention. This is a thriller book. The synopsis behind this is, or the whole storyline behind this, is that there is a body of an infant girl that is found in or near a river. And so the whole book, they're trying to figure out where this baby came from, because it's newborn. If it was already dead when it was left by, I don't think I mentioned that. It's dead. That's not a spoiler. That's right on the inside cover there. So they're trying to figure out who left it. Was it already dead when it left? It was left, and it sort of just weaves this tangled web of characters that I was slow to pick up on, and maybe I feel like other people wouldn't be, but there was a lot of, so it's like a small town type book where everybody is connected in this story, and I didn't realize it until like almost halfway through, like stuff started connecting, like, oh, that's the same Sam they were talking about. There's no one named Sam in here, but this is the same Sam that this person casually mentioned in their chapter 3 chapters ago that did this. And then I started like making this spider web of connections. So that was really fun and interesting for me. This was just a nice thriller mystery book. I think I gave this 4 stars as well, maybe, I think. It has a crazy twist in the end, which I did not see coming. Maybe other people would. That kind of like, I don't know, it shocked me. It shocked me at the end. Kind of like how it wraps up with who done it, you know, who's involved and who done it and whose fault, who all the people they're at fault in this book. So I definitely think if you're a fan of like thriller mysteries and you aren't too, if you wouldn't upset you too much for the main storyline to be about a dead infant, then yeah, pick that up. I've noticed now that I had 2 dead infant themed books, which makes me sound really terrible now that I think about that I read 2 of that type of book this month. All right, moving on again, I also very recently finished Fever 1793 by Lori Halse Anderson. And I want to go ahead and say that I did not find this very enjoyable. I know it's a pretty popular book. The cover was familiar to me, so it wasn't a completely unfamiliar book to me when I picked it up. I've seen it before and seen people talking about it. I didn't really like it. I thought it was kind of boring, but maybe it's because I've been reading all these adult books that are fast-paced mystery, thriller, horror, for the most part. And this was just more of a true, like, historical fiction. Yeah, it's just historical fiction about, you know, a fever, which is kind of completely out of the theme of how I was reading this month. So this was just a little more like, okay, it's just okay for me. I feel like my 11-year-old would probably enjoy this more than I did. And I also realized that this is not an adult book, so that might be why, I guess he wants to be a part of it. That might be why I didn't, you know, enjoy it as much as I did my other books, because this isn't really written for me. I don't know if it's YA. Oh no, I think it's middle grade because it's ages 10 and up. So that might be why I thought this was kind of boring. I would definitely pass this off to my 11-year-old and see if she liked it though. It was good. I mean, it was okay. It was just okay for me. It's about the fever of 1793, yellow fever in Pennsylvania, and a girl that's stuff is happening to her and her family, and she's trying to figure out things and not get sick. And that's all I want to say about it, because obviously I wasn't that excited about that book. The last book that I'm going to talk about that I read this month was Lost You by Halen Beck. This wasn't on my October TBR video that I made, but I found it at the library when I went mid-month, and I just couldn't help but go ahead and pick it up because of the whole like inside cover when I read it, because this is about, I already said this in another video, this is about a woman who goes on vacation with her son, and he goes into an elevator and the doors close and she can't reach him in time, and then when they open again, he's gone, and then he's just gone from the hotel. And that's all the inside cover tells you, so I can't tell you much more than that, except there were a lot of story twists in this that I did not expect. I could not predict. There's a whole other storyline in here that the cover doesn't tell you about, and that I feel like I can't tell you about, but you would find out if you read it. And this whole thing was just, you start out maybe, you know, feeling sympathetic for one person, and then sympathies change after a while, and it's not what I expected. From reading the inside cover, this story is not the story I expected to read based off what it tells you. It brings up a lot of ethical questions, I believe. I know in my mind, I was feeling that. It makes you think about, how do I explain this without giving stuff away? I had so much sympathy and empathy for some of the characters in here, while at the same time, you know, shaking my head at them and being like, no, you know, that's bad. You need to get a grip, you know. Yeah, this was a little heart-wrenching. I would say it's even more like twisted me up a little bit more than this book, with the, you know, the infant that was found dead by the river. This one deals with a lot of internal heartbreak and turmoil, and sometimes some mental delusions that can happen because of stuff that's going on in your life. And I will say that as a mother, if you're a parent, this book, I don't know, just for me as a mother, a lot of the scenes that were depicted in here after a while, as you learn more about what's going on in the story, were just, they just tugged at me in a way that, because I've experienced those things, and then the way the story played out, I was just, it's just sad. This is a sad book. So if you want to feel confused and learn about this whole plotted storyline as you go along, and get deeper and enmeshed in people's messed up lives, and conflicts and then also feel sad for multiple people, then maybe this is the book for you. I don't know how to describe this without giving it away. And the thing about this is the whole cover, the cover of this, the inside cover, doesn't give you, it doesn't give away what the whole plot line of this is at all. This is not the book I expected. I'm going to stop talking about it now because I'm butchering my description. I hope you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to say from that. But those are the books that I read in the month of October. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot to talk about a book. So sorry if this the video ends up being kind of disjointed because I have to pop back on here and talk about this because I can't not. I did read another book this month, really quick. I read Lessons from a Dead Girl by Joel Knowles, and this is a YA book that, wow, it was intense. I think I read it almost all in one evening. It was definitely less than 24 hours that it took me to finish this book. Not that it's super long anyways. It's only 200 pages. Not relevant. Anyway, this book was great. This deals with really like a frenemy type situation and how that is still bullying and how that can still mess you up, like really mess you up mentally, to have a best friend throughout so much of your young life who actually isn't a true friend and is more like a frenemy, who reels you in with niceness and kindness, but then kind of like hits you, like sucker punches you in the stomach with insults, abusing your trust, and also it kind of delves into like the bullying side of it too, although you don't hear from the bully friend's perspective, but you do have some sympathy for people that bully because you realize that they have also been hurt very severely too. And children, especially children on into teenagers, will take that out on their peers and mirror what they've been shown in private onto their peers, and a lot of times their closest friends. And then it just continues. It continues this line of hurt and abuse, and you can see how being hurt and abused radiates out. It's not contained to one evening, one home, one situation. It really is like just a snowball effect. This was an incredibly important read. I enjoyed it greatly, and it did fit in with like this dark theme I had going on, but more like not a mystery or thriller, completely kind of different setting and whole premise to it. But I highly recommend this, even if you don't normally read YA. There are some hard topics and scenes in here to deal with, but I just think it's an important read, and I would recommend this to anyone. It really shows that friendship abuse is a thing, that's why I picked this up, because I had never really heard I mean, it makes sense, but I'd never heard those terms, you know, you hear about all kinds of different kinds of abuse and unhealthy relationships, but this covers basically toxic friendships, and how, I don't know, just because you've been friends with someone for a long time, or you see your children have been friends with someone for a long time, almost throughout their whole life, doesn't necessarily mean that you know what's going on in that friendship and how possibly they could be being manipulated. I love this book. I think I gave it 5 stars. It was great, and I recommend it. But now back to the video, and I hope I can fit this in somewhere where it makes sense. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books, unless I'm forgetting one. I don't know if I am, but that's 8 books for the month of October, and it was overwhelmingly good, other than a couple books that weren't written for me as an adult, so I don't know if it's completely fair that I rated them lower. But yeah, they were overwhelmingly good. I enjoyed them. And I'm definitely going to just continue with my dark theme right into November because now I'm in it and I don't want to leave it. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Let me know if you pick up any of these books and what you think of them. And of course, always, I'll take recommendations and add them to my giant TBR and maybe one day read them. But I hope you guys have a great day and I will see y'all again sometime soon.